So welcome to the video, everyone. Special video for you guys today. I have a member of the 10K Elite Club here with us who is being kind enough to answer some of our questions. We all like to hear real stories of people who are selling on Amazon. So we're going to hop straight into this one. We're going to pick Stu's brain and ask him as many questions as we can in the hope that it will help you in some way, shape or form with your own journey. So do you want to give a little intro to yourself, Stu?
Okay, so I'm Stu. I took the course with Dylan in September 2018. I was recovering from an operation and I was stuck in bed. I'm quite an active person, so I just really did not know what to do with my time as I was stuck in bed for 6 weeks. And it was a really perfect moment when I got the, I think it was a YouTube ad, bought the course, and I started to take action more or less straight away.
Okay, fantastic.
What happened then was I, as most people would be doing, started to do some product research. I went down a certain avenue. Then, you meet roadblocks like suppliers or lost. I even had lost samples.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I remember that actually.
Yeah. So everyone has their roadblocks. I then took a long time to pick a product. I then end up, instead of moving forward, I think I picked 2 or 3 other products. So I didn't actually start selling until February of this year. I started to sell, and part of the motivation for me to really push through and get a sale was because a potential supplier told me that they couldn't fulfill my order ahead of Chinese New Year. And that really annoyed me because he said all along that he could. So I almost pulled an all-nighter to try and find an alternative supplier who could get me moving before and deliver before Chinese New Year. And they did that.
So what would you say? So just if we rewind slightly, so before you started selling, obviously it sounds like, one of the issues there was a bit of a delayed start, a bit of a short fuse due to your own sort of personal reasons and also the delay with Chinese New Year. But before you started selling, what were you doing before selling on Amazon? Were you working? Were you not working? You don't have to give specifics, but what sort of idea of what were you doing then? And are you still doing this at the moment whilst you're running the business?
Yes, Dylan, I still am working full-time, and I was working full-time then. And that was one of the other reasons I was getting started. I have a role where I'm running training and support for a big organization across a number of different countries. So it involved a lot of traveling, a lot of time away. It meant that your work-life balance couldn't be... it was just awful often. So
yeah,
I wanted something to enable me to stop that lifestyle. And having 6 weeks in bed was a blessing.
Yeah, blessing in disguise.
Because it made me have that time.
I suppose it gives you time to reflect, doesn't it, on what really matters, and then puts you in a position where you're ready to just take action and go for something. And I guess this sort of, it came at the right time for you, I suppose, around that time.
Exactly, yes.
And
so I'm still doing that at the moment, and I'm determined to, not be doing that in 12 months.
Okay, and the way you're going at the moment, it looks promising for that. So we won't talk too much about that at the moment. We'll move on to that, but it's looking promising that you will get that end result. That's ultimately what I did. It does tend to be the end goal for a lot of people who do start selling, is just the freedom that comes along with the lifestyle of selling on Amazon. So when you did actually start, what was your initial investment, and sort of how were those costs spread? Did you sort of have to pump in a certain amount on day one, or was it spread over a certain amount of time?
Yeah, so my first product landed cost was about £1.80.
Okay.
I bought 500. And I had to pay a 30% deposit at Alibaba at ordering.
Yeah.
And then not until the shipment was sent did I pay the rest. I must say, though, I also paid quite a bit on... I spent a long time perfecting my logo, and I also paid Fiverr freelancer to do some branding, sort of supporting slogans. So, some supermarkets have a name and then they've got a slogan like "Every little helps."
Yeah.
So I got a lot of little hints and tips on how to really brand properly.
Yeah.
And that that all cost more and added up, but I think really that's all an investment at this point.
Yeah, they're sort of, I suppose, the one-off costs, aren't they, right at the beginning? The fees for the images, for branding, things like that, if you use freelancers.
I did, yes. My first images were good, but I then changed most of them again to get them even better. So I did put a lot of upfront time, sort of back and forth with the freelancers to get it right.
Yeah.
And I believe it works. That effort does pay off. Certainly from my side on that first product, definitely.
Yeah, I agree there. I think the investment at the beginning, sort of, I talk about this quite a lot, cutting corners at the beginning, trying to do things cheaply. Although, to a degree that's true. I think you obviously need to be frugal and thinking about what you're spending your money on. But at the same time, trying to find the cheapest way to do everything isn't always the best, method or strategy towards it, especially with product imagery, your branding, the product listing itself. Time and money invested into that at the beginning certainly does pay off, because as you probably agree with me, Stu, it's a one-off cost, right? Once you've done your images and your branding for that product, that's it. It's not like you pay for stock, over and over and over. So it's just the initial investment, and it does pay dividends as time moves on.
Absolutely, yes.
How much would you say then? Would you at the beginning? I mean, total then, including products, shipping, VAT, duty, everything, what was your sort of total investment, would you say, roughly? I mean, give me a ballpark figure.
Yeah,
because your product's quite cheap. Quite cheap.
With samples, because I had a lot of samples that just weren't good.
Mm-hmm.
And my product landed cost was £900. I shipped them over by air, so that was about 300. It's 1,200. I probably spent close to £1,700 on images, on branding, and that was. And I also added an ebook as a electronic bundle. So getting all that set up, probably about 1,700.
Yeah, about 700. That's a. I mean, it's nice to hear that figure, because I mean, a lot of people throw around numbers at what's realistic to start with, and I've, from my position, having had a tremendous amount of students through the course and mentorship program, I see this is typically a sort of in between sort of figure. I would say this is the ballpark range of about 1,500 to 2,500 seems to be a realistic amount when you factor all costs in. I have seen it done for £1,000, actually slightly lower than that. But I think when you go into this, you'd probably agree you shouldn't expect to or have a budget of £1,000. Really, you should be looking to invest slightly more and be in a position to have a little bit more if it does cost slightly more than you expected, I suppose. But 1.7 is a. I mean, that's affordable, isn't it? I mean, when you look at that investment to what you're doing at the moment now, you look at that decision you made to invest that money. Compared to, relative to what you're doing now, it is small. It is very small. And again, it's considering how fast you're growing at the moment, which we will look at in slightly later on in the video. It was a good decision, basically.
Yeah, no regrets. I mean, I did spend. I think when you look about the money side, yes, you also have to think about the time.
Yeah.
The back and forth and the sort of research, like late nights, early mornings. I think people need to be aware that it isn't just about signing a check for 1,700 and that's it. There is time.
Yeah.
Effort needs to go into this to get the listing optimized as much as possible.
And where would you say, how would you compare the time? I mean, the upfront time, we always talk about this a lot. You have to invest and you have to be committed and willing to put the work in at the beginning, a lot of front end work. How would you say that, how does that split with, your front end work opposed to when the product is launched and the work you're doing purely on those products now, not any further growth or expansion? Well, how would those two compare, would you say?
Well, I'm not doing any work really on the first product at all anymore. I'm just looking at my reviews coming in. I've, as I said, launched in February. I've now got nearly 70 reviews at 70.
Yeah, that's impressive.
It's averaging 4.7 out of 5. My time today is really about the next one and the next one and the next one.
Yeah, and I think that seems to be typical for a lot of people. I do say to people, you have to put typically the product research stage and basically everything leading up to launch is time consuming. You have to be willing to put the effort in, but it does become very passive, after that stage once you've launched. However, the issue is that people obviously get the bug, as I did, and you don't want to stop on the first or second. You want to continue growing, and therefore you start all that work all over again. So, really, you do a lot of work if you want to keep growing, I think.
Yeah, I think one thing I'm finding is it's actually getting easier the more you do.
Yeah.
For example, I've got 2 brands, but I've got essentially planning on putting 4 products into one brand. So I don't need to redo my branding.
Yeah.
I don't need to redo my logo. And, that does save time and money.
Yeah.
And it also, with practice, these things get easier. So for those people listening, if it's your first one, you want to go for it. It is tough at the first because you have to really go through all Dylan's videos again and literally pause and play it for 2 seconds and then rewind and go back again. and eventually you will get the hang of it, and then it becomes, with practice, much easier.
So I suppose, would you say, what would your advice be then for, it's a good point you've made there, for diversifying? So with yourself, you launched a particular product, you had all those, what we were talking about, the front end costs or the upfront costs, the one-off costs that you paid. Now, you benefited massively from staying within your niche and staying within your sort of brand, and by expanding your range, you avoided all those costs being reoccurring costs, so to speak. So by not choosing a different product in a different category and different niche, you avoided all those upfront costs. Would you say that's enough of a reason to automatically stay within a niche, or do you think you should still explore the other option if the products are there?
Well, I think it's a good reason to stay in a niche. So like I've said, I've got 2 brands. One's newer, and I'm having to rebrand that, of course, and new logos and the same. But even that is easier because I know who's good. I know the freelancers that are good. And those who aren't good. Yeah. So I can avoid those. So even if you want to go down a different niche, once you've built up your awareness on who is good on Fiverr or who's good on Upwork to help you, you can and you can go back to those guys and actually volume. You can negotiate with those guys and get potentially a better price for repeat work. Yeah.
So putting aside the future products that you're launching, are your 3 products that you have now all within the same niche?
Yes, they are.
So you have been able to so you've reused those brand names for these 3, but however, you're now branching out and having that done again for different products, correct?
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So, one other question then. How did you juggle your FBA business with work? I know you said it was difficult. I would say, based on 500, 600 students who come through the program, 95% of people are working full time when they do this. It's not something that you just quit work and start. And typically, most people don't. If they haven't got a job, they haven't got the money to start in the first place. So most people have a job. How did you juggle that?
I think it is tough, and for me, I found it very difficult to start. I tried to make use of when I had time off. So, for example, over Christmas, New Year, I really spent a lot of time then. Yeah. And I also I read somewhere a sort of analogy whereby I was running fast, trying to get as many things done as I could, to give the baton over to someone else who's a freelancer who then could run the next leg of the race, really. Mm-hmm. So I would sort of set myself a goal to get certain things done to a point whereby I could hand it over to someone else who then would, could take it forward. And I think I never leave a freelancer hanging. If I've got an order sitting there, I put my requirements in, I push myself to get that done. So I just know that you'll have a result by whatever time frame they've given you. So it means that you've always got something moving, you always got something happening.
Yeah, fantastic. And also just for the audience, so what Stu's referring to with a freelancer, it's basically just a professional who specializes in some particular aspect of business. So typically for Amazon FBA sellers, we might use people who specialize in Photoshop or photo rendering, creating images for your products, writing copyright for your listings, so sales copy. So we can actually outsource that work, and that's what Stu was referring to at the beginning. He actually chose to invest a little bit more, and rather than try and put these things together himself, which would be probably painstakingly hard, and I've been through that myself, and I ended up giving up. And also very time consuming. It's better to get it done quicker and more efficiently, and the overall end result is better by using a freelancer. So, and like you said there, Stu, so you had sort of smaller goals that would bring an idea or a particular project that you were working on up to a stage that you could pass it over to one of those freelancers.
That's absolutely right. Yes. So I was so many times almost quitting, almost just turn my computer off and go to sleep. And I just thought, no, I'm going to give this another 25 minutes or so and get this finished. And then
exactly the same as me.
What would happen would be you'd actually forget you've done that, and then the next day or two you get an email to say, oh, your work's been completed.
Yeah, I have exactly the same thing now. And I think one of the issues, I don't know if you feel the same, I think, but although it's quick on Fiverr, they've got a fast turnaround for their work, because it's not instant. I find that because I know that the work that I'm going to do to bring it up to the stage where I pass the baton, because it's not going to be an immediate turnaround, I'm very impatient, and it sometimes actually means that I don't do the work, which I would highly recommend not to do. So I'm discouraged from actually starting it, just because I know it might take 3 or 4 days for them to do it. So that's completely the wrong way of looking at it, by the way, but it's just one of my pitfalls, and something that I worked on personally as I was getting started. And that's why I used to try and do it myself, and because I thought I can have this done in 4 hours, but it would end up being wrong, and then I would need to do what you did anyway. So it's the wrong how not to do it, people, how not to do it. And what was your motivation? I know you said you had the accident, you were bedridden for 6 weeks or so. Other than that, what really drove you to make the decision to commit to this and to push forward with it?
Well, I really enjoyed having time off after an operation. That was bliss, and I thought, I wonder what it would be like if I could just do this all the time.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all it is. That's all you need. That's all you need. I think it's one of those sick feelings when you have a holiday and you have the Monday blues. You go back to work and you think, what would life be like if I was just on a holiday all the time? And you agree. I'm not trying to say Amazon FBA is just a 365-day holiday. It does require work, but I think Stu will agree. When you're working on your own business and something that you're passionate about, and it makes it a lot easier, and also it's not sort of you work X amount of hours and you get X amount back. It's not fixed. It's uncapped. So, the more work that Stu puts in, let's say 2019 and 2020, Stu launches 15 products, it's not going to have a set amount of income back. It could potentially be, a significant amount, and you can't really measure it. You can estimate what you will earn based on the research that you do, but it's very attractive when you know that if you work hard, that you have an uncapped limit to what can come back. I mean, if you look at what you've done now, to think the stage that you're at and the income that you're generating and the revenue you're generating now, is incredible, and it's something that you wouldn't get with a full-time job for the hours that you put in. Okay, so let's tell people what they want to hear. So, I mean, you're a recent member of the 10K Club. So, for anybody who doesn't know, that was introduced by myself to recognize the hard work and the achievement of a student reaching £10,000 in sales on Amazon, or £10,000 in revenue. That, in my opinion, is a big milestone for people. And from that point, it tends to get a lot better. So at the beginning, your costs are higher. You have your upfront costs, you have PPC costs. And people in this space will know that as you progress and your product matures, things start to be very profitable as you move on. So, recent member of the 10K Club, taken me a long time to get this point out. How much are you generating at the moment, this month, on Amazon UK through FBA?
So, as of today, I looked back the last 30 days, it's 7,200 revenue in the last 30 days.
Okay, I'm going to pop that up on the screen somewhere, hopefully not in front of my face, somewhere over there to show you guys what Stu is talking about. So of that revenue, what is your profit, your fixed profit margin?
40%.
40%. So as you start to, and again, as the months move by now, and these sales, I would say, are expected to grow, especially moving into Q3 and Q4. If you're looking at 40%, you obviously have PPC deducted from that. But let's say, is that including PPC?
That's not including PPC.
Okay. So if we just go with 40 for the moment, so that's about almost £3,000. So about £3,000 in profit a month minus your PPC costs. So how much at the moment are you spending on PPC at the higher end?
I'm spending 15 or 16 pounds a day.
Okay, so that's about what, £400 a month roughly, or £500 a month. So if we deduct that from the 3,000, about £2,500 of profit per month passively. So what I mean by passively, everyone's obviously familiar or likely to be familiar with Fulfillment by Amazon. Stu could be working on a tropical island somewhere. He could be on holiday working from his laptop. He doesn't need a fixed location. So how does it feel? Because I remember how it felt when I broke my first 5 figures in a month. How does it feel getting to the point where you've reached where you're almost at the figure mark now?
I just, every day, part of me thinks, I better check this is actually still working. So, and it's the same, my parents asked me, my friends asked me, is it still working? Yeah, it's still, and
yeah. People say the same thing.
Is
it still going on? Is this still happening? Is this real? It's like, yeah, it is actually. Here's a phone.
Yeah, and actually, the more you get involved and the more you can see this happening, my experience is that the more I can see it happening more. So I'm looking forward, and sort of in my vision, I can sort of see this. My plan will be to have 12 products by February, which is sort of one a month from when I first started. So that's February next year. Yeah. Obviously, we're speaking today in the end of June 2019. So I think it is pretty amazing. I didn't expect this to happen, but as I've sent you a couple of messages recently, it keeps growing. Yeah. And it's hard, I think it's difficult for when you're not in this space, when you stumble across something like Amazon, it does seem too good to be true. It seems fake, it seems inauthentic, it doesn't seem like a genuine business model. How can you possibly make, or how can you possibly generate £7,000 in sales in a month? First of all, just that, and secondly, how can that all be passive? It just, those are two unbelievable things, and when you put them together, it's like inconceivable, which is why it's so difficult for people to go for it, because it just seems too good to be true. But I think you have to do your research into things like this. Stu, how many months were you looking into Amazon before going for it, or how long did you look at it for before you actually made the choice to go for it? I was looking at it from sort of September, October, all through Christmas, and I really wanted to start in January, but I got let down by, as I said, a couple of suppliers. And I think one of the messages I want to put across for listeners is, and it's one of your points, is that really make sure you go for something that's already selling. Mm-hmm. And I went into my first product knowing it was competitive, and knowing it had high sales. And I surprised myself that within a week I was on the first page. I don't know how I was on the first page, but I haven't been off the first page since. Yeah. And just make sure you go into something that's got high sales volume, and don't be so feared about the competition, because if you get your listing looking really good, most of the competition won't be as good as yours. Yeah, I agree. I think it's an easy hurdle to fall at, feeling discouraged or disheartened by seeing a lot of sellers in a niche or a particular space. But if the demand is there, and something that we always talk about on the course and within the community is differentiation and adding value. If you bring something, exceptional to market, it will perform well. I have products, and I have lots of students who have products with extremely low reviews, competing with
other sellers who've been there for 2 or 3 years who have got hundreds of reviews, because ultimately people like new things, and especially if those new things are equally as good, if not better, than the competition. So yeah, I agree with you there fully. And also the point you made there, Stu, about not necessarily not following what you're passionate about, but not letting that determine what you go for. So, making sure that you do your research and you go for products that you know are selling well. I have people come to me and say, Dill, I want to sell this product. And I say, have you done any research? And they say, no, I just know it's going to work. And I usually advise against that, or I advise to at least check first. To make sure, because we want to, Stu will agree, we make data-driven decisions. We don't guess what will sell. Stu didn't throw his products up and hope for the best. You knew that they were in demand. You knew how long they were in demand for, and you knew you could bring something better. So what would you say then? What was your biggest hurdle? What was the hardest part that you found, and how did you overcome it?
The hardest part for me was finding decent suppliers.
Yeah.
And I had to go through a number of them to get a good one. And it's not just about looking at their got trade assurance or if they've got supplier status. It's about, are these suppliers able to work with you? Do they respond in time? Do they follow up with what they've said? And can they communicate? And do they have a good product? Because you have to really have all those things for me to start working with someone.
Yeah, so suppliers, a lot of people do find that, and that was one of the reasons I introduced the elite supplier scripts, some separate training as well as the course, and templates for people to reach out to suppliers, and techniques that you can use to lower prices and lower MOQs, and just the particular channels that you need to go through, like you mentioned, trade assurance, etc. So I think that's a good point. And how would you say how did you get through it? Was there anything you'd advise people how to make that easier, having done it yourself? What to avoid, or you know what I mean?
I think you just have to be really determined and persevere. Yeah. You have to really persevere, because quite honestly, once you find them, there are suppliers that you're going to use again and again. And it isn't just suppliers, like I said, on Alibaba. It's the suppliers that help you with everything else, like the Fiverr and the Freelancers as well. So I think you just have to be determined and keep going.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree with you there. And I mean, what would you say then for someone who's considering Amazon FBA? They're on the fence. They've been thinking about it for months, but they don't back themselves. They're worried if it won't work. What mindset would you think they should have, and what should they do? But I know every situation is unique. But what would your advice be to people who they're in a position, they've got the funds to start, they can afford it, they really want to do it, but they're just doubting the process and their ability?
I would say they need to take a course by Dylan.
Right, that was the right answer. That was right.
No,
I didn't pay you.
They have to be all in.
Disclaimer.
You have to do this. You have to be all in, and you can't just think it's going to work, or wait for it to happen. Wait for Amazon to. I've heard someone say, "Oh yeah, I'm waiting for Amazon to take off." And I thought to myself, Amazon's taken off. Years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. It's taken off. It's now in space. It's going hard. Okay, so basically just do your research. Make sure, again, it's people's, it's their own choice whether they want to take part in any training. I'm an advocate for it, but it's not necessary. Some people don't want to do it. It's not essential. You can do it on your own if you want. So that's an option for people. And are you moving on to the end of the chat here, Stu? Are you planning on? I know you've pretty much covered this one, but you are planning on launching more products. So how many? 12 by January, was it, or February?
Well, February. I mean, January would be great, but at the moment I've got one product, which is the original one, selling really, really well. And I launched 2 more in just starting there. That's what the PPC's for, in May and June. And I've got 3 more in manufacturing. Actually, one's on the way. So, and actually, they're all derived from the initial research I did back at the end of last year. So
wow, so they're still around. Yeah, that's surprising. That's really positive. So you've already done that. They were ones that stuck in your head from when you first started the first one.
Yes. In fact, I wish I had more time to launch more. That's the way I'm feeling, because when I first looked at those products back in October time, they had less reviews and less competition. But I think it's a mistake to try and launch too many at one time.
I agree.
Just focus one, get one absolutely, running well.
Yeah.
And then move on to the next one.
You don't want to become overwhelmed, do you? You don't want to become overwhelmed with too many and end up getting none done. And also cash flow, you'll know about cash flow. If you've got 4 products of 500 units, that's 2,000 units. If you need to order another 2,000, you might not be in a position to do it, and it might all flop. So
that's right. And what I did was I reinvested all the funds I've had in terms of profit back in. And I also had some savings from inheritance to start off with to get myself get starting.
Yeah.
I am putting everything back in. I'm not spending anything really from the business at all yet. So it's all being reinvested for the future.
Yeah. And I mean, if we look at the figures that you're doing now, I mean, let's make a projection. So you're doing 7K at the moment with three products. Is that correct?
That's right. Well,
so,
I mean, one's only just started last week, so it hasn't really sold much. But yes.
Okay, so let's
right.
say 2. So let's say 2 products generating 7K. So if you're looking to jump up to 12, that's 6 times the amount of products. So 6 times 2 is 12, and 6 times 7, 35, 42. Is that right? 42,000. So that would be £42,000 worth of revenue, assuming I'm not an idiot and have got that wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, Stu. I actually used to teach maths, so you'd think I'd be able to times 7 myself. So that is a considerable amount of income, right? If Stu can replicate what he's done now with these 2 products, with the next 10, he is set to do over 40K per month, which is incredible. And that is, when you get to that stage, you can then question whether you want to, you might want to split work 50-50, so work 3 days a week and focus that other time. As Stu knows, time invested in Amazon is time well spent. So if you can put 20 hours a week more by reducing your work hours, that's obviously an option. Well, Stu, honestly, it was a pleasure having you on. That was extremely insightful and helpful. I'm sure the audience have found it useful. Thanks for coming on. And I look forward to awarding you with the 10K Elites Award and seeing you get up to that 100K point that we were talking about, which I am absolutely certain will happen.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the invite, and I really enjoyed
Thanks, mate.
my time speaking to you.